Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me.
And here I am with the Marathon Podcast. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, and today we're talking Boston Marathon. We have had a couple of episodes about the Boston Marathon already, but why is it that we're focusing so much on that exact marathon in this podcast? Well, first of all, Boston Marathon is kind of the unicorn of marathons in the marathon world. It's the race that people are training for. They might have that as almost their lifetime goal, and it's one of the biggest and coolest events you can take part in if you are a marathon runner. And so in this podcast, we're obviously talking about marathons. It's hard to not talk about the Boston Marathon when it comes to the marathon, and that's why we are yet again bringing it up. And the main reason why we're bringing it up today is that yesterday there were some new things announced about the Boston Marathon. BAA, Boston Athletics Association, announced new rules for the selection or the registration Boston qualifying times for 2027. They also came out with some imperative information for the 2026 marathon. So today we're going to talk about both those things, but we're obviously going to start with the first one, the 2026. But if you are planning on doing the 2027 marathon, you need to listen to this because this is definitely changing the perspective and the direction that the Boston Marathon is going or heading into. And I'm sure that some people might be pretty upset about all of this and feel like it's unfair. But just keep on listening and I'll try to explain to you why these changes have been made and why these changes actually might make sense to you. So first of all, just some information about the Boston Marathon 2026 and the registration for that, things that you need to know about your upcoming registration week that it will be in September of 2025. Like I said, we covered a lot about the Boston Marathon in a previous episode, one of the first episodes of the Marathon Podcast. It's called Everything You Need to Know About the Boston Marathon. And then we also have a race recap a couple of episodes or a few episodes later. So if you want to listen to those, go back there. There you will also find more information about the qualifying process, everything that you need to know. But in short, for the Boston Marathon, you need to qualify. You can't just get a spot at the Boston Marathon by winning a lottery. You need to run for a charity or a brand if you're not fast enough. So being a Boston qualifier means something, and it should mean something. But then again, even if you're running fast enough to actually qualify for the Boston Marathon and you think that you met the qualifying standards, they might actually add what they call a cutoff time. And the cutoff time means that you are not necessarily qualified just by running a sub-3 marathon, for instance, or running under the qualifying time or standard that I just mentioned. The cutoff time is based on how many applicants there are, how fast they all ran. And last year, for my age group, which is 18 to 34, the qualifying time or the qualifying time you needed to run to register was a sub-3 marathon, but you actually ended up having to do a 2:53:09 marathon or faster. And this made them again this year to actually lower the qualifying standards to 2:55 for my age group. You can look up the specifics of your age group on BAA's website, but it's getting harder and harder to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And I think that also for the 2026 marathon, I'll probably have to do a sub 250 marathon for my age group to qualify, which means that I don't believe that the cutoff time will be less than 5 minutes. It will probably be something like it was last year because the running boom is definitely here. A lot of people are running, fast, and the Boston Marathon is not getting any, it's not getting less popular. It's definitely a race that a lot of people want to take part in. So if you want to know more about the qualifying standards, how to qualify, all of that, head back to that episode and listen to that. We're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do if you have already met the qualifying standards for the Boston Marathon 2026. So in Boston this year, I did a 2:53 marathon. I don't think that is enough for me to actually qualify for the Boston Marathon, but it does mean that I am ready to register. I am allowed to register. If I didn't do a sub 2:55 marathon, I wouldn't be allowed to. But on September 8th, 2025, so this year, I will be able to go and head into Athletes Village on BAA's website and start the registration. There might also be, at least it was last time, the possibility to register your time a bit earlier just to have it verified beforehand. But this registration week, that is a yearly thing with the Boston Marathon, happens in September. This year, it goes from September 8th to September 12th at 5 p.m. So it's from, I guess, Monday to Friday, or maybe Sunday to Friday. I don't know what days that will be, but 8th to 12th of September, that is the registration window. And so just know that if you are late to the party here, you're not going to be able to get the chance to run. You have to register before the September 12th, 2025. This does not mean that you can't run a race all the way up until that date. As long as you've had a marathon raced before September 12th, you are good. Like, I'm doing my marathon on September 6th and hoping for a 2:45 marathon there, and hoping to use that to qualify for the Boston Marathon 2026. So that is what you need to know about that. All the things that we're going to mention about the 2027 marathon, all these big changes that are now in place for that race, does not affect the 2026 marathon. So don't worry, whatever marathon course you did, as long as it's meeting the Boston qualifying race standards, you are good. Again, to know what is a Boston qualifying standard marathon, go check out the last episode that I made on, or the episode that I made on the Boston Marathon. Everything you need to know about the Boston Marathon. The day after the registration window for the 2026 marathon, the window for qualifying for the Boston Marathon 2027 opens. So on the 13th of September 2025, you can run a marathon, and that will count as your qualifying time for the Boston Marathon 2027. But there's a big but here, and that is that things have changed. So every year, like I said before, they changed the qualifying standard times last year because the level was so high, and you have to run faster now to even be able to register for the Boston Marathon. But every year they're changing and looking at the times that previously have been achieved and the results, and based on this, they will take action if they see that a lot of runners are benefiting from something like a net downhill course or a race. So first, let's just define what is a net downhill course. So what they're saying is that if you see the difference in elevation between the starting point of your marathon or your course and the finishing point, that is what they're calling the net downhill, or the difference in net downhill. So starting in 2027 for the Boston Marathon 2027, you will now have some time added to your results if you are running a net downhill course. And not just like by it being net downhill, but if it is 1,500 feet or more. So that is 457.2 meters or more. So if you are running a course that has more than this, you will have to add some time to your results, or to your time. And in this case, if it's more than 1,500 feet, you will have to add 5 more minutes. And if it's more than 3,000 feet or 914 meters, they will actually add as much as 10 minutes to your time. So that means that if you barely run a sub 2:55 marathon for my age group in a net downhill course of 3,000 feet or more, you will actually be very far from qualifying. That will actually equal a 3:05 or 3:04 marathon based on your time. This is gonna change the Boston qualifying standards, the way people look at this, I'm sure some people will really disagree because a net downhill course doesn't necessarily mean that the course is easy. Boston Marathon itself is actually, per definition, a net downhill course, which means that it seems like it's gonna be an easier marathon, not as hard, but that is definitely not the case. Boston Marathon is known to be one of the hardest marathons in the world, and still it has a net downhill course. And just to clarify, if you're running on a course that has more than 6,000 feet of downhill or 1,828 meters or more downhill, net downhill, you will not see it as a qualifying time. It's not gonna count as your qualifying marathon. So just to summarize this really quick, net downhill courses will really affect your time. If it's below 1,500 feet of net downhill elevation, you are good. You can look at the qualifying times of Boston, the normal qualifying times for blowout Boston Marathon. If it's more than 1,500 feet, but still less than 3,000 feet, you will have to add 5 minutes. If it's more than 3,000 feet, you will have to add 10 minutes. And if it's more than 6,000 feet, you have to find another marathon to run because it's not going to count. I know that this is probably going to upset some people. Some people might actually disagree with the fact that these net downhill courses are easier to run, but that's just how it is. These are the changes that are coming. And I think it was very smart of the Boston Marathon to not make these changes for the 2026 marathon, because that would have created a big upset with people. I think that this does make sense. I totally agree that this is a good way of looking at it. But yeah, like I said, Boston Marathon itself is net downhill, and that might actually have people more frustrated because they see Boston as a net downhill already. But just to be clear on one thing, and that is that the Boston Marathon itself has 460 feet of net downhill, so that does not make it a very controversial marathon. It's not even close to the 1,500 feet that they're talking about here in terms of adding time. So these are more the very, very net downhill courses that we're talking about. And I'm sure people, like I said, will be upset, but that's just how it is. Deal with it. And let's all, I guess all of us, we just need to get out there and run and find races that are not super downhill. Yeah, I don't know. This was a bonus episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, that it gave you some clarity if you were not aware of these changes or if you were confused. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Please follow this podcast. Make a review if you liked what you heard. And until the next one, you listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.